Good day, everyone. I'll be doing the video myself today. GDP, yeah, we've been talking about GDP and in economy. So GDP is the core measure of a country's economic health, total monetary value of all goods and services produced in a given period of time, minus the value of goods and services used up in production. For investors, GDP is a guide for estimating profit margin and making financial decisions. Economists use it to understand the economy and make forecasts. Number one, real GDP and nominal GDP. Just in a simple word, real GDP measures a country's economic output adjusted for the impact of inflation. It captures the quantity of goods produced in different years using the price from the same base year, while nominal GDP, on the other hand, measures a country's gross domestic product using the current price without adjusting for inflation. The other one adjusts during inflations. The method to calculate net production by subtracting consumption from the estimated output in a year. Finally, I would say the expenditure method calculates the sum of all the goods and services purchased in a country over a course of 1 year. GDP deflectors. The GDP deflectors is a measure of price inflation. It is calculated by dividing the nominal GDP by the real GDP, and then you multiply it by 100. So that's the mathematical formula. It's also known as the implicit price deflector, measure the changes in price for all goods and services produced in an economy. I would give an example of how to calculate GDP, but for instance, let's say Nigeria produces 20 million naira worth of goods in a year, and the output or the GDP then increases to 22 million in the next year. Some people might say that the total output grew by 20%. However, if the prices rose by 10%, because 22, that's 2 million naira, that's 10%, GDP figure will be inflated when compared to the previous year. I'll be calculating how to calculate the GDP. So in reality, the economy grew by 10% from year one to the next year. When considering the impact of inflation, the GDP measures takes the inflation into consideration, and that is the consideration is what we call the real GDP. So from the example I was trying to say, for example, we're calculating real GDP with deflector. Okay, now the formula, just like I said, is real GDP. Real GDP, that's the formula. Real GDP, nominal GDP, where this R actually is the GDP deflector, and GDP means gross domestic product. So this is the formula. So for instance, if an economy prices have increased for 1 year for 1%, since the base year deflector of the economy, if it's for 1%, for example, that means the deflector will be the deflecting number. If the nominal GDP was 10 million naira, then the real GDP is calculated by as, let's say 10 million will be calculated as divided by this real GDP 1.01, which will give us a total of 990 990 and the currency is naira. We're all using naira. That's the currency. So this is how to calculate it. Thank you.